5th, 2026. Stephen, can you please call the roll?
Chair Moore,
Here.
Vice Chair Warner,
Here.
Commissioner Willem,
Here.
Commissioner Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Martin,
Here.
Commissioner Kwan, Commissioner Vander Gallion,
Here.
Commissioner Shukla.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Is there a motion to approve our agenda for today's meeting? Second. Motion made by Vander Gallion, seconded by Commissioner Martin. All those in favor? Aye. All those against? Our agenda is approved. Can I also have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our December 1st commission meeting? Either an email or public comment updating. So there, in the written communications, there is an agenda item that they want to make sure that their written comments are reflected in the meeting minutes from a prior meeting. So by approving this agenda, like I think it's in the record right now that she has given the written communication. I did talk to Stephen before that it's hard unless audience members want to submit written testimony. When we take meeting minutes, it's not necessarily verbatim of when they actually say to us. So if there's a dispute, obviously she contacted city staff. She wrote her email. It's included in now our agenda. So since the agenda is approved, I see the issue as moot. Okay. Going forward. So approve the minutes. Again. Motion made by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Vander Gallion. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, our motion passes. Written communication, as Commissioner Martin pointed out, there was a dispute a couple months ago from a contentious public hearing we had. So the public resident kind of wanted to clarify some of the points, and that has been included in today's written communication. There also was another written communication sent to us later today about kind of just feedback for the unfinished business of the traffic calming action plan update, just so commissioners take note. And then on 3, communication from the audience. There are no communications from the audience wishing to speak. We'll just go to our business agenda. 4.1, elections for transportation chair and vice chair. So I do not plan on putting my name forward. I've been the chair for 2 years and vice chair for one of those years. I think it's important for another person to kind of lead our body. The biggest thing, as you guys have seen me, is to conduct the meeting, meeting, work with, city staff, our council liaison, and kind of just any question that the city has, they kind of work through the chair and the vice chair to kind of work on our agenda and whatnot. So, and then we also have to elect a new vice chair. So if there's questions or thoughts, I'm willing to kind of talk about it more. But usually we just kind of debate amongst ourselves, and someone, as we do with any motion, someone motions a person, someone seconds it, and then we kind of discuss and vote on that person. So if there's any kind of questions, or is there anyone that really wants the chair position, now is your time to kind of inform the body that you want to be considered as our new chair. I would like to motion propose as chair burner to be vacant chair. Seconded. Discussion.
Regretfully, I will have to decline. Unfortunately, work commitments in the coming months probably preclude me from both being chair and then also continuing to run as vice chair. It's something I'm interested in the future. I just need to be realistic about kind of projects that are on the plate right now.
So the motion has been made, so we have to actually vote on it. So Any other discussion?
Can I restate my motion?
Yeah, we vote and we pass it, then what? I resign.
I think it's too late to rescind your motion since it was seconded. So I think we just have to vote it down respectfully. So, all those in favor, vote aye. All those against? Nay. Okay, the motion is defeated. The motion was made by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Harris on nominating our vice chair as the chair. So that was defeated.
For clarity, how much extra time would you say you spent on the commission, the chair, just being very involved?
No, it's a good point. I will say the last probably 6 to 8 months has probably been the most difficult just because every meeting has been kind of, we've gone beyond the 2-hour allotment. I get emails from city staff and I'm CC'd on staff. Just going back and forth on just a lot of small nitty gritty things. So it really depends. Like as a regular commissioner, you probably spend at least an hour or so just reviewing the packet before our meeting. And then obviously our meetings are 2 hours roughly, so 3 hours a month. But as chair, you probably can add like another hour or two, depending on what's before the commission. But I also think it will help knowing that we have an active new city liaison that, as I said, in December, Councilmember Watson did not really attend our commission meetings. And that kind of put us in a bind because the liaison just play an active role in guiding the body, giving us the person's perspective since they are an elected city council member. So hopefully, our new council liaison will help the chair on decisions that the chair needs to make on behalf of, working the city council. Yes.
I would also add, and this may, I don't want to necessarily speak for you, but I will say I'll complement the information here, which is both Mitch and I have had multiple years and we've seen multiple people come in and out of that role. And I think everybody that's stepped into that role has been somebody who had some apprehension at the beginning of it, feeling like I don't know if I'm prepared for this, but we collectively as a commission have been very supportive and the city liaisons have been supportive of people. So I wouldn't hesitate if you have any interest jumping in, even if you don't necessarily feel like there's a particular depth or experience on procedures or Robert's rules or stuff like that. That's stuff we've collectively worked out together as we've kind of talked through the days.
And I was one of the first vice chairs that moved up to the chair position. It's usually not the way it works. Usually someone really just wants the chair position. And then as a backup, we elect someone just who's always been able to come to all the meetings. Because the whole point of having a vice chair is just to kind of have someone in case I'm sick, I have, a vacation, whatever, that the vice chair is able to kind of run everything in absence of the chair. But no, I was very nervous when I first got the position from Julie, and she did it, I think, for two years.
She was vice before that.
Yeah. So, I think 2 years is enough for me. And obviously, like, I've had my mistakes as chair, but, I'll still be on the body for another 2 years to guide and to be there for assistance. I just think for the new commissioners, that are on our body, it's mostly just the chair position is what you put into it. If you just want to run the meetings and not have ever like do more, then you can do that. We've only been busy because things have been brought to our agenda and we've had to kind of react to it. It's not like I secretly wanted to be busy for 8 months. It just kind of happened. So I kind of expressed kind of, reflection for Willem, Vandergallion, Martin, and Harris, like for those 4 individuals, like you know, if there's someone amongst you four that is willing to kind of take that step, would be appreciative.
I'll say I have an interest, I don't know what my future in landscape holds, because my current lease ends August 1st. And either for myself and my partner are here anymore, because we're not school or not commitments. I don't know if I'll be here, you know, for the rest of my term, for the rest of the year. I would be interested in filling the vice chair position if it's okay if I leave, you know, after the first 7 meetings. So I don't know, process that you're just electing one travel time.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't wanna, it's a chair, because obviously it's a little tricky. You know, it's the year, but I'm vice chair.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Hello. We're still on the chair, so, but we
Oh, I
can,
know.
no, we can, I can make the motion for you for vice chair. Is there a reason, like what, is it timing? Is it just, what's people thinking?
I have a future interest in trying out that role.
Okay.
But right now, I'm still finding my feet as part of the whole process.
So,
So, I've only been on the commission a year, and before this, had no other public experience, so. I will not be putting my hat.
sure. Vandergalen.
I,
You want your mic on?
I move that we table this until Adon and Ankita are here.
Is there a second to the motion?
Are we able to do that?
Whoever.
Okay, motion made by Vandergalen, seconded by Willem. Is there discussion?
What does that mean for the rest of the agenda?
So
Would we still be in effect?
yeah. We would just postpone our election for chair. Like,
If we elect a vice chair, but not a chair, can a vice chair serve temporarily until we elect a chair?
yeah. No, these are good, you know, good discussion, good thoughts. I do think Adon would have interest in it. And he unfortunately isn't here. But my concern is if Ankita or Adon do not want a chair position, like we're kind of in the same boat. And I can do the position again. The only hesitation I have is that like, I think it is for me to do it for another year. Like all the institutional knowledge is going to be with me and I'm term limited. So like, I want someone else to learn the ropes. So because Julie, when she was chair, the last year or two, she wasn't chair because she wanted to kind of just be a regular member and whatnot. So like, to save the headache of not knowing what February will bring, like if there seems to be no consensus on a new chair, like I don't mind doing the chairmanship again. But I don't really want to do it unless there's really no one that wants to do the position.
And I came here today expecting that our vice chair was going to chair, and I understand your position. I don't believe that at any point in the foreseeable future, I will have the capacity to be the chair of this body and continue my role with Bicycle Friendly Lansing Group. I came here willing to step in as vice chair until somebody else was willing to move in because of the, like, I wrote down everybody's terms here. Mitch and Nathan are on their 4th year. Evan, Adon, and I are on their 2nd years. Corwin, William, and Ankita are on their 1st years. So yeah, if nobody else wants to be chair, for the sake of not having Mitch do it for a 3rd year in a row, I would take that responsibility. But like you said, it would be whatever work I wanted to put into it, and there wouldn't be a whole lot of extra time outside of these meetings put into that chair position. So to ease some of your obvious reluctance and maybe take some pressure off you trying to have to explain out of that. That's my position on this entire thing. That's why I'm hoping that Adon will come here and say that he's excited about doing it. I would assume he would be here if he actually was excited about doing it.
Yeah, I can't say that I would be excited to do it or necessarily really want to, but I would have no issue being chair or vice chair. I think that'd be fine, whatever, but I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to wait until more members are here so we can have more discussion if we want to put it on.
Okay, so far the motion on the table is just to postpone our election. If I understand, Vandergalen, did you do both or just the chair? Are we postponing the whole agenda item for chair and vice chair?
Let's say we quit with the entire agenda.
Okay, go ahead. So that's the motion. We're just going, before we vote, we're just gonna postpone 4.1. And then I would just make it known that means that Nathan and I will just remain as chair and vice chair until we elect a new chair and vice chair. So you still get me, I guess, for one more day or one more month. Yeah, we'll vote on motion. So is there any other discussion on the motion at hand? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Okay, we will postpone the election to our next meeting.
Can I ask a question related to that?
Yeah.
So we do have an opening, and typically the vice chair and the chair are on that interview panel. I just wanted to throw that out there in case that, so I'm planning, right now we have 3 applicants and I'm planning to move forward with scheduling that just because we do have a vacancy and we want to get that filled. So if
I would put it Nathan and I,
Okay.
like, I hate to say it, like, I would just CC us on the emails, and if we can go on the Zoom, we can go on the Zoom.
fair enough,
And just kind of keep it as if nothing has changed until
Okay.
we elect a new chair and vice chair. And then even if those interviews haven't happened yet, I leave it at the discretion of the chair and vice chair if they want to be added to future, like, if there's still ones that we're still scheduling or however we want to approach that.
thank you.
Okay, so 4.2, discussion on the 2026 Transportation Commission meeting schedule revisions. So at our last meeting, we did add additional days that are in conflict with city and state holidays. So January 19th, we are closed. So we cannot actually meet on that Monday, the 19th. And then August 3rd, there are no rooms available. So if we want to meet again in January, we would have to look at the 26th. Because I think the 12th would be too soon.
I have a conflict on the 26th. I won't be able to be here, but I'm the. Up to the.
It's also of the environment on the 26th.
Okay. I will check that email real quick and make sure. She did say, I think it would be in another room possibly. Yep, so it probably wouldn't be here. It would be in another, but I will double check it, just to make sure.
Or we don't have a second meeting in January and we just do it in the second.
City planners planning to be on the 26th to present on the. It's. But that's necessary. I move to approve this proposed meeting, schedule.
For what date?
The entire table shown on page 16 of the agenda.
Oh, for the 26th and 10th. Oh, God, yeah. Oh, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? All those against? And the motion was made by Vander Gallion and seconded by Vice Chair Warner. 4.3, discussion on invitees and topics for 2026 meeting. This is kind of interesting because, you know, as kind of a temporary chair, I don't really want to start planning stuff without someone who's going to be the chair to kind of implement the decisions. But I think these are kind of fine to be tentative unless there's really an appetite to like have like the chief of police come in again or someone very specifically that we want to kind of have another discussion on something that we want to have a discussion on.
To have more interaction with MSU. I see there's the, I guess, MSU on there, but that sure I can with that.
The student,
Like, Stephen, do you have like a liaison that you work with MSU? Or like, how do you guys coordinate or not?
I have a liaison for the traffic, which is basically just their traffic person, which is Stephanie O'Donnell. As far as this body, the ASM MSU, I don't have anybody.
Probably people at MSU, professors, might have a wealth of knowledge. Traffic safety or planning, that sort of thing. And, you know, get as much help as we can, you know, more perspectives. I've got like that, I don't know, I think would be a good resource for us to reach out to. So I could try to look into that to bring for next meeting.
Yeah, like obviously, yeah, go. Yeah.
I've got two contacts, I mean, for Janet Ridley and Sue Webster. And they are going to want to bring much more communication between the city and the university. I meet with them on Thursday, 10, and they're really wanting to have much more communication. I don't think it would be their necessary expertise, but if you could write me up exactly what you're looking for, I can present that to them, say maybe they can reach out to the university, but we'll be interested in dialoguing with us, or at least making public comment, or.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so
Email me that, possibly wherever the question. Or,
Yeah,
so it's Steve Whalen at 60 cents.
okay.
I think there's two things that I'd love to see from the university, because one of them is what I think you were speaking to, is there's a lot of expertise there and knowledge that if we had that expertise and knowledge, it might make us better at doing whatever we're doing. The other is I think the university is an actively planning and managed body, and that coordination between the projects that they have in place and the projects that we can help facilitate. I'm remembering a conversation of the west end of Shaw and the bike lane that disappears because it's in their infrastructure and it's not in our infrastructure, and how do we coordinate those things? So those to me feel like the two facets of a conversation with the university.
And our, more we communicate, the better.
And so I know a few of the professors at the school of design. I think that I could ask if they were like a personal rather than university capacity, just from an expertise perspective. And pertaining to this motion, to this agenda item, I also do want to see her interfacing in the meetings with either the chief of police or a representative from police, just to give us updates on traffic control too.
Yeah, and hopefully, you know, with our new liaison, like I know they did like an update to council about hiring like cops for like traffic and traffic enforcement and whatnot. So hopefully as that is implemented, there's more kind of enforcement with speeding and whatnot.
It's from base, as part of the police, right?
Yes.
Some from case specifically, it'd be nice to have here, because I know the Department of Enforcement, because it relates to the word, but it's tangential, to us, like it's at least parallel to our parking and transportation, like, and it's a good thing, and actively give recommendations regarding parking.
Yeah, and I think maybe like in like a March or like an April meeting, having like Pace or the chief of police come, because that way after 3 or 4 months, we can kind of see how has, you know, how is the new kind of you know, officers doing with responding to traffic enforcement for city streets. And then going back to the Michigan State, I know as you know, we're all permanent residents here, but there's always going to be tension between Michigan State and East Lansing, just the nature of being in a university town. So anything that we can do to minimize kind of the different priorities the university has with the city's priorities is for the better. And that just comes with communication and trying to find ways to work together since we both need each other. So yeah, if we can kind of get someone from the actual administration, from Michigan State, that's willing to talk to us about what their concerns are, because I would imagine they have concerns that they want the city to address. It's not just we want Michigan State to address our concerns. I'm sure there's both concerns, both sides, and hopefully, you know, Councilmember Whelan, that like you as a council member can work with, you know, MSU on a more, you know, official basis, knowing that at least when I read the East Lansing info, there's always been this kind of push to establish or reestablish more of a working relationship with like the actual administration of the university. So
So also, Councilmember Singh is really, really pushing it hard right now.
yeah,
And I'm 100% with her on that. And more communication is always better. So one clarification, just so we make sure we have the right message. So I think maybe two, you can kind of quickly collaborate, not right now, but what exactly what you're hoping for, or if we need to think this through more, what we're asking for. I think that Sue Webster and Jen Lilly both say, fine, I'll get a hold of somebody today. And they'll say, great, get it on the agenda quickly. And they're both movers and shakers. Fantastic. So I think just to make sure we know what we're asking for. And also how busy are the different meetings? Are you thinking just to have a casual dialogue with everyone at the table, or is it more of a presentation, or I guess a little bit confused?
It's kind of gone both ways. It seems like with presenters, sometimes it's informal, sometimes if there's a specific topic that kind of helps guide it, if the commission knows of a specific thing that we want to focus on. Yeah.
yeah, and I think
Or is it more just starting dialogue and it's a brief little?
Martin, since you brought this up, what was your envision for having, you know, Michigan State be more present in our meetings?
Yeah, so I think that we've touched on a couple of the ideas that I had. One, read about other regions, municipalities that have a designated university zone that's like within, you know, the radius of the university, within that town, there's a coordinated effort between the different bodies. You know, around here we have us, MSU, the county, et cetera. Like, whoa, well, there's this crosswalk down there that seems to look problematic, but that's not in our jurisdiction, so we're not gonna do anything about it. And I've read about other areas where it's more of a coordinated effort to make sure that all of those crosswalks and the fines and the rules that are applied to them are all standardized across those bodies. I think that that's something that we could improve on and work toward, and interfacing with MSU is the first step. And then another thing that I often have in mind is reading about a lot of the improvements that are being made in other similar cities in the similar sized cities in the Midwest. I see this pattern of the mayor or someone within engineering or, you know, influential has gone on a trip to Europe and they've seen, you know, maybe even like back in the 90s and said, oh, wow, this is amazing. Look at what they're doing, like with the roundabouts or with bike lanes. And then they come back and they're like, why are we doing this here? And then it's just like, you know, one or two people saw this new different way of doing it. Growing up in the Midwest, it's car centric. That's all that we know. But if you are exposed to this new thing, oh wow, like it can really spark your imagination. So I have this idea that some of the presentations could be given is just examples of here's other ways that things can be done. There are other options. There's other possibilities. Just to, like, you know, get the conversation going and spark imagination. And I think that there's probably people at MSU that study that sort of thing. And in fact, I think I've been in a meeting in this room that was talking about traffic calming from someone at MSU. This was several years ago. But yeah, it's just showing, you know, the audience what's possible.
So it's kind of twofold.
Yeah.
Mine's more about just establishing more of like a yearly basis, like having someone from MSU come to discuss kind of what issues they're hearing from like a pedestrian crosswalk or traffic or whatnot. Like, but no, yours is also interesting too. So I don't know if, Evan, if you want to work on like an email of kind of the scope of it so we can write it down and then give it to Stephen and just kind of keep it as like a working, like, here's kind of our idea and just, seeing how we can move forward at a future meeting to have that discussion. Any other kind of thoughts on future invitees or topics? Yes.
I know several of the individuals that are involved from the board level for the Friends of the Lansing Regional Trails. They're an outstanding organization that's coordinating a lot of the information and projects around the kind of greater Lansing area when it comes to the trail network. I think they would be interested in coming and speaking, both to share the information of what's happening in our kind of surrounding communities that they see. They may be able to give us some guidance about areas where other communities are investing and we can partner with them on that. And then also I think they might be a good resource for us to be able to ask questions of East Lansing has I would say slightly different relationship with the regional trail network because it really just kind of cuts straight across East Lansing and it goes mostly through campus, whereas everybody else has large networks within their community. And so we might benefit from hearing from how do these other communities engage with the regional trail, and are there anything that we can do to kind of augment that? Thinking about this body has talked previously about sort of complete networks of trails, and that are there places that we see that East Lansing hasn't integrated fully into the network, and we could put effort into that in the future. So I think FLIRT would be a good group to come and invite.
Just make sure you wrote that down, Stephen.
That also includes this Parks and Recs, showing our trails.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. That'd be Justin Drinky. Could also be a good person to ask about that. They got a couple of trail projects and yeah.
Any other discussion for future topics or invitees? moving on. So, 4.4 Auto Club Group Foundation Support Letter. So, city staff is requesting us to consider making a motion to sign a letter to get some grant dollars on temporary traffic control devices. So as we say, the grant prioritizes funding for traffic safety programs and initiatives that make roadways safer for all road users. The ACG Foundation is responsive to emerging traffic safety issues and will fund forward-thinking projects that addresses new technology. So this kind of fits in with a lot of the discussion of what are permanent solutions, but what can the city do for a temporary basis if there's grant dollars out there that can do those kind of low-hanging fruits to help with traffic calming measures. So it just is pretty clear cut that if there is a motion that the chair would just sign the letter on behalf of our commission to seek out those grant dollars, as I understand it, Stephen.
Yep. And could I add a couple
Yeah,
clarifying? No, I had the question of the title of that program. So the program doesn't exist, the temporary traffic calming. It's just the title that we put with as part of the grant. So, but if it goes forward, that'll become part of our effort. This is not non-motorized. And then I did want to mention there was some other edits. I guess Erica just got back to me before like an hour ago, basically. So there's a letter, but it's very similar. In a quick read, it looks very similar to the one that you have in the packet. So as long as everybody's okay with, signing probably her version, then I'll put that on a letterhead if it gets approved.
Yeah, I was curious on page 20 of the agenda for the letter. Let's see, in the first paragraph, third line, it mentions DPW's private state roadways for all. City of East Lansington traffic program. Is that another program that would be created if this gets funded?
Correct. Yeah, it's just it's a title for the grant.
I was gonna say I hadn't heard that. Sounds great. Yeah, this is awesome, but that we're proposing to get out for it. Out of curiosity, do we know potentially how much grant would be for?
Yeah, it'd be about 20 grand. So it'd be a start. The material that's in there is just like the couple of the rubber that could be used as a curb, or you could use it for bump outs or traffic. It's like some kind of and that kind of glues or mats down. And I think there's the speed bumps as part of that as well. So temporary speed bumps. Yes, yeah. So we've gotten a quote from I forget the company's name, but these materials exactly. So we have a breakdown of the cost. That's where we got that. The 20,000 is a roundup. I think it was closer to like 17,000 some odd dollars, but yep.
Any other questions for Stephen?
Yeah, just want to say that we're not fortunate to be granted this. I'd love to see more conversation around how to continue the effort this to figure out other ways to make sure it moves forward.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I would just want to add that when I read this, I just want to kind of express thanks because I think this is kind of creative problem solving and how to get some stuff done that we've been looking for. So this is really good.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve this letter of support?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Martin, seconded by Vander Galen. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All those against? Motion passes. On unfinished business agenda, 5/21, traffic calming action plan update. You want to start this off, Stephen?
Yeah, sure. We don't have the hope is still to get a draft from our consultant for this, for the commission's consideration. I think it would be really important. I did start looking through, there are a lot of good examples, even in Michigan, of some of the other municipalities, what they're doing. So I started compiling that. I didn't have that in time for this meeting. I'll just put it up there so people can kind of see there's different elements of, hopefully it goes through. There it goes. Thoroughly zoom in. But just different elements of different plans and what they consider with theirs. And that kind of helps guide the conversation, probably, hopefully, in a future or even this meeting of what we're hoping to get out of the action plan. Just a couple of things that I've noticed, obviously, that usually the resident initiated is usually across the board a part of the plan. There's not one that I found that's the closest I think that I found that wasn't resident initiated was when a city had like a 2-track where, you know, there's a resident initiated and then the larger like neighborhood wide, you know, separate consideration, I guess, where it's budgeted and it's a separate project, but the city's already kind of doing it separately. So everything else as far as, you know, localized problems, I didn't want to mention that because I know we have a lot of questions of like why do the residents have to bring forward that petition. There's a couple of interesting thoughts in there. Obviously, you know, some of them have this is San Diego is the only one that I saw has a neighborhood approach versus a singular. In other words, you know, there's a singular, but then if there's enough, if it's thought that you're going to push traffic to other streets or this is going to be a neighborhood problem, it kind of turns into a neighborhood analysis. So I thought that was interesting. A lot of them talk about the toolboxes, which we've kind of included in ours and they have included in theirs. One of the things, I don't know if we want to talk about it, there's two different, all of them that I've seen are all data driven. In other words, there's some kind of data that informs the decisions. Obviously, it's engineering, it's best practices, you know, it's neighborhood input. A lot of it is, so there's this kind of balance of like there's data that's given, and then there's also meeting with the residents and making sure that there's buy-in and that there's a solution that works for everybody, and then there's a vote, a tally. So in that, we are one of, you know, I found one other jurisdiction that does like a weighted. So in other words, ours, you know, we have our level 1, 2, and 3 thresholds. So we can very clearly say you either qualify or you don't. It's very clear. You know, we take the traffic data, you have a 50%, 85th percentile speeds, the volume, and then the crash data. And all of that factors in the weighted system. It's very clear. A lot of other jurisdictions, they have they do the same thing, but they don't necessarily have thresholds. So they just use that information to inform the decision. And especially when it's, I think it's, a lot of it is trying to find the traffic calming that actually works for the problem that's being proposed. So it's kind of acknowledged implicitly in each of those that there's certain traffic calmings that may not be as effective or may not be as applicable in certain circumstances, and the data helps inform that decision. So just some observations there, and I'll leave the rest of it to discuss.
So I think the biggest thing I want to point out is that until we kind of get back that other kind of from the consultant, that document to compare what is before the commission and kind of combining those two into one document. Like the biggest thing that this body needs to consider is our plan has to be easy for residents to understand and to follow. And it also needs to be easy for city staff and city council to implement. So, because I do think there needs to kind of be just a better black and white process of how a resident goes about if there's a problem within a city street or a neighborhood, like here's what they have to do, or here's what the city can do. And like instead of just having all this like tension built up, because I think the last 6 to 8 months, there's been a lot of tension with speeding either going unaddressed or getting worse. And we've seen by this body, and I know, our new council liaison's seen it at city council, of just doing a better way to respond to our residents' concerns. And obviously no document will be perfect, but just making the document easier for city council, for our body, and for city staff to be responding to concerns. So that's the only thing I have as chair, is that I'm really not really concerned about the actual details. It's mostly about the holistic approach, that whatever document we do give final approval towards, that it's easy and it's not technical and it's not very burdensome for either the city or for residents.
I think that was the whole, at least the way that I was thinking about this, is we had a lot of examples in the last 6 to 8 months where a traffic controller came in front of us. We said, this is not a good idea, but we want to make your street safer, and that's the only thing that we could say, right? So part of this is trying to offer flexibility at different points in the process to where almost anybody can say, that's not the right way to do it, let's look at these other options. And also trying to incorporate the fact that we had a lot of contractors put reports together and set them in front of us and us say, we don't care what this says, do it anyways, right? And it's a lot of money to spend, and it seems unnecessary when we're gonna do it anyway. So part of that is, I understand the data-driven stuff, but how do we set it up in a way that we're like, oh, okay, that's fine. We want to put a stop sign here anyways, right? Or we think that a roundabout, everybody agrees that a roundabout's right, just because we can't get the right amount of traffic on the road on the day that we have the tubes out, shouldn't stop us from putting the right traffic control measures out.
Yeah, I think that goes back to, I would kind of skew more to less data driven and more, it's that balancing act. Like, you can't exclude the data, but the data shouldn't be the final authority of how we make decisions. We, just like we take residents' feedback, we take feedback from consultants, we take feedback from Stephen and DPW, but we as a body, we have to kind of balance those out. And I think whatever the new system is, like, yeah, the data is so important. Like, data is important, but we can't just be data locked and make no decision. I think that's a disservice.
There's enough data in all of the other streets in the country that say these things save lives and reduce crashes, right? So it's like, how much data do we need that's East Lansing specific when the FHWA says that this is the best way for it to go?
Do you have any comments?
Yeah. I appreciate those comments. I think that it is good to balance the data gathering with deliverables, I guess. And that's where internally we're having that conversation. I brought it up there, the weighted process, which is basically, it's very rigid. It doesn't leave a lot of flexibility. So even if something's like on the edge, or we know that it's a lot of publicity, or there's a lot of push for a particular item, right now, whereas the other, there's a little bit more flexibility. It's still data driven. You're still doing getting the information, and it's informed, but it leaves more ability to work back and forth for a solution. And it's still, I think it's hard to get away from the data driven completely, only because there does come a question, and it's down here, it's funding. There's a funding mechanism that comes into play at some point. There's a budget that's there. Currently, the budget for our traffic calming, which we have not gotten to it, but it's 200,000 for this year. If we go forward, and if we are able to revamp the traffic control action plan to be very open, where suddenly it's very easy and the city can act very quickly, which is actually a good thing, there will be this, you know, and it could be written in, some of them do, but, you know, it could be like, we appreciate your, you know, your application and we approve it, but it's gonna have to wait till a future fiscal year kind of deal. It's gonna run into that sort of gate of the budget. And then there's also the question of, you know, some of these, action plans have different mechanisms for funding. They actually have options for people, neighborhoods to pitch in 50% of funding or something. I would find that very difficult to implement on a practical scale. But it shows, to me, it shows the difficulty that these cities that at some point you would come against, you know, some funding. And I think there would be a little bit of accountability for taxpayers that, you know, this is not, you know, these are being paid for. So you want to make sure that whatever you're putting in is actually applicable or it's solving a problem. From the engineering standpoint, you know, we don't want to just put stuff in because people want it. We want to be able to confidently say, we think that there's a problem and this is a solution. There's many of them and they're proven by FHWA. But just to be able to show measurables that this is actually accomplishing something, to be wise with the money, I guess.
But wouldn't that decision would be made by council, not us? Like, obviously, like whatever traffic control, you know, calming plan we make, and we have, say, keep a lot of get approved by this body, whatever, it's up to city council to fund it.
Yep.
Like, I'm just saying, I think it goes back to, like, I've seen stuff from the planning commission gets approved unanimously, and then city council says no. It's like, it's tough luck. It happens. Like, I'm just saying, like, I just think whatever the new body is, like, yeah, it should be somewhat rigid, but at the same time, like, we're just a first step, and our goal should just say, hey, is there a problem? Yes, we recognize there's a problem. Here's a solution that we think could help. We vote on it. It's up to city council to then, do they have the capacity to fund it? Like what you're saying, like, I don't want to get in a way where, like, you're using the $200,000 like for only, like, you know, 1 or 2 projects, and then we have no other money for the other kind of petitions or whatever. But I feel like we kind of, like, is this the first time the city has given you an actual line item for traffic calming specifically?
Yeah, that's a more recent.
Okay, well, like, that's
Budget
a good thing.
Yeah, I will credit Scott House for that. You know, he foresaw a lot of the traffic calming, which is why, you know, the non-motorized transportation plan and some of those grants and the push for that really,
like,
from Scott House.
Steven, like, you being our council liaison, like, do you, would like, you are the ones that take votes at city council, that you have to hear a lot of the things we hear. It's like, would you rather it be more like balance or more data driven? Like, we want to make sure that, like, we don't want just to blame city council for why things don't get done.
I think that's the issue. Okay.
I think you turn it on, you just turn it on the whole thing, like, or you can use his or.
Governance is an interesting situation. So we had several people talking about the stop signs at Marble, and then it was compared to, wait, Bailey has stop signs, Marble, Southeast Marble doesn't. I walk Southeast Marble. That's our neighborhood that we walk. So someone said, well, regardless of what all the studies said, let's put some stop signs in this month. It's like, well, we can't have knee-jerk reactions. I think there needs to be a look at all that stuff. So I think that's a challenge of, in that meeting, that was before I was on the council. But I don't care what it's almost like, I don't care what the data says. Let's give them what they want. People want this kind of thing, so let's just give them what they want. And I think sometimes that's the knee-jerk reaction to being a responsive government to the people's needs. I really do lean on people who do this all the time. But at some point, is it worth the fight? So I think it's a shame when we do tremendous amount of work. The amount of work that was put into Glencairn was amazing. Okay, and the agenda tomorrow night, we have a decision to make, another decision to make on Harrison Road at the crosswalk. I thought most of that was already dealt with, and now we're still continuing to do that because people are trying to be responsive to. So I think you said, what's the balance? I say it's a balance. And I do think money is going to become an issue this year. I've stepped on the council and everything keeps on getting, yeah, we're all fine, but I think at some point we may not be fine when this next budget gets proposed. So I think $200,000 budget, that's great, but something that's not budgeted is going to have a hard time getting passed from here on out for a while. I'm a guy, I can't spend more than I make. And I'm gonna be concerned, anything that's proposed, it's not budgeted, I'm gonna have a hard time personally making a decision on that, and I cannot speak for any other council. So I think all this discussion is really, really valuable, but I think having the plan of, in a lot of neighborhoods said, okay, they did the big petitions, they did all the stuff, then they're frustrated because they did the petition, but nothing happened. I think having a laid out plan of exactly how we want things to be done and let people follow that or go through those processes. And then I think we can put out with a better solution. And that's a response to the community and some professionals in the way in. I do think just depending on the studies and the data is not going to be enough anymore, at least for some people out there that people's concern shared. I said nothing.
No.
That's the concern.
Yeah.
Okay. We do need to be a responsive government. And I think sometimes what is the drawback of having a stop sign? What's the drawback of having this or that? What's the unintended consequences of this or that? I understand from my former career that there are consequences to how a person sees a yield sign compared to a stop sign. All that to say is, I know there's several communities that are really, really upset, and I think several people believe that Glencairn is getting hurt and other people are not. So let's kind of figure out where we're at with the whole scope, and I think that's where you're trying to head, Mr. Clayton, is that let's get a system here and try to follow the system. Is that true?
Yeah. And to help, I guess, guide, I appreciate the discussion here because that helps inform myself as well when I talk to our consultant. Because that is we're talking through some of those questions that are going to come up in those conversations. How data driven are we going to be, or like, we know it's going to be a part, but how, I like what you said, Mitch, it's got to be easy for the residents. It's got to be not too burdensome for staff would be our preference, obviously. So no, that helps inform the conversation, I think.
Do you think, Stephen, will have that document by the 26th of January?
We will push to have that document before the 26th. Yeah, like within, I would say, I'm hoping very soon, basically.
Because I envisioned having, besides having, postponing our elections for chair and vice chair, the biggest thing would be having that debate on, where we feel with the consultant, here's what they propose, here's what the plan that is before us, and then what do we mesh and what do we actually kind of create to make one kind of plan.
Yep.
So,
and
Nathan.
I think there's a really interesting distinction that I heard in this that I think it's important to make sure is kind of plays out in the final document. Is there's a difference between data-driven in terms of what the end decision for the resident is. So like this volume of traffic gets this type of traffic calming. I think that is where we've experienced some frustration with the community, because it's very easy for someone to say, but I don't agree with the data. I think, we pulled on the wrong day, we pulled the wrong time of year, we looked at the wrong street or something like that. And so we can nitpick the details. And so what I would love to see us have is the data should drive the recommendations about, given this type of data, these are the solutions that we would see on the table. But for the resident and the resolution of their concern from beginning to end, the data isn't a gate that stops them from moving forward. It helps provide the context for this body who's going to give advice to
city council about, this is what we would recommend based on the data that we see and the recommendations that come out of that data. But the actual like flow of that person's concern wouldn't ever be affected by, like we said, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. If they like, well, you didn't make tier 2, you can't get on the next agenda. You can't get in front of the next body. You need to poll a whole bunch more people. I'd love to see us move more in the direction of any concerns that are raised. They will be talked about. They will be addressed. There will be recommendations made. Those recommendations may be driven by data and industry analysis. And then I would say for us as a body, the challenge is that, I think you spoke to this, Steve, that there are certain things that the community is asking for and wants, and we will be stuck sometimes when those requests are things that we know are going to harm the community. And how do we then say, I have a responsibility to keeping kids safe on the street. I can't have you put that type of traffic calming in because we know based on data around the country, that's going to make it worse. And so we have to be bold enough to say, I can't endorse that, and I'm going to tell city council I can't endorse it. And that's as far as our advice can go. And then it is up to city council to then say, we heard you, and the marginal moment here is we're going to do it anyway because it's not, it's not that big of a deal. Or absolutely, that is a consistent thing we want to try and hold in the community. So I would say that some of this is the plan, and some of it's a challenge to us as council members to have those moments where we kind of have to say, this sucks. I hate to be the guy that votes this thing down because there's people with pitchforks and torches outside, but I can't in good conscience do thing X, Y, Z or recommend it because it either is counterproductive or at least it should have the context to say, in this moment, it's not going to help. We can spend money on it, but just know you're not getting any gain.
I think one thing that may help the communication is the whys. And that's why I'm committed to being at every meeting. And I'm committed to reading. Also, if there's any way I can get packet, the record, is there any way I can get the packet?
I will CC you on all those. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be good. Yeah, you should.
You should have been CC'd on the other one. I apologize. Yep.
That's why, rather than just saying transportation decided this, and only one person could say this, that, I think it's really important to have the whys, why you made a recommendation or not. And yes, and sometimes it may not go the way that everybody wants. And when one person shared about my child, how important is my child to you? I understand every one of us. I've got almost 9 grandkids in the community. So I care extremely much for every single child, every single person. We just need to make the best decisions possible. So I think knowing the whys, when you all communicate, I really hear that. Again, I'm not a voting member, but I want to hear and listen to where you're at and where the open is.
And I will.
And we don't always get.
And then I would add to what Warner was saying, Stephen. I think the best example of like where the data, where we kind of had to kind of balance it out was when we were talking about the Glen, Karen, Harrison, if we're going to raise the crosswalk and like we recommended it. And then the consultant was like, well, you can technically, but then the whole idea of like, well, when the cars go over, it's going to create noise. And we're like, well, that's going to be a problem for the residents. If they want that crosswalk and they think it's going to act as a buffer, like, okay, we're going to do the raised crosswalk and whatnot. It's like whatever solution we put forward, I think there's always going to be that like, yeah, but you have this other problem. It's like, it is what it is. Like, I think that is a good example of where like the data wasn't really supportive. It wasn't really like against the raised crosswalk, but we were like, well, if it's not really against it, let's just do it and give it what they want, give them what they want, which we did. No, I don't know if they're going to get it, but we yeah.
So effective.
Yeah. And it just speak where you live. And unfortunately, like in our city, there's more neighborhoods that are more vocal and passionate than others. And that's that's something that we can't control. So,
I think that once people start to see how this, or a potential new plan empowers them to make a difference in their neighborhood, it's gonna spread like wildfire. Steve, comment about Vision Zero mentioned. I think that was in here somewhere. There was language I took from another plan. And I don't think we have a Vision Zero ordinance. It's something that maybe we should talk about introducing.
can you explain what a Vision Zero ordinance is, Stephen, or?
Vision Zero is like a policy that's working towards zero deaths or injuries on the road.
I know I mentioned it a few meetings ago too.
I'm not sure what would go into an ordinance on that, but it's the goal, right? The nationwide, or even, I think it's even more than just nationwide, but it's, you adopt it. Yeah. And the idea is that any death is unacceptable, basically. So you're not doing metrics. You're trying to do the zero. So yeah, I just put that in there because I saw it as in Ann Arbor.
Hmm.
Consistent key sense, it could be by the resolution as opposed to an actual ordinance, because obviously you can't legislate.
Yeah.
That's.
But I think we have a safe streets ordinance today. That's when we will push towards these policies.
We have a complete streets ordinance. Yep.
So we're gonna be discussing this for the next meeting, but one thing that I did want to highlight is in the pages on, but one of the links that's mentioned within the draft plan is linked to Pittsburgh.va.gov. They have from the research I've done, they had the most complete data of what they've done. So the link that I'm looking at, they have over multiple years, every traffic calming measure that they've implemented. So they have street name, project type, speed cushion, speed bump, etc. The 85th percentile speed before implementing and then after implementing, percent of driver speeding, average daily traffic, location, etc. I think that's worth looking at. I think that there's effort of hoping residents know like where we're getting our information from, how we're educating ourselves, and like knowing how we're making our decisions. For me, like saying, okay, and acknowledging that this is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I think that drivers probably are fairly similar to us. And that, implementing a speed cushion at this particular location decrease the amount of driver speed by 30%. Like that's it's pretty tangible. It's as tangible as that it can be anyway. So just wanted to point that out as a nice resource to take a look at if you're interested.
The traffic calming effectiveness report that we have seen is a very similar data set that we can just say, go look at this street 10 minutes down the road and you'll see where we had a 30% reduction. Yeah. Get recall. Also worth considering as we use some of this stuff, if we're going to put out temporary stuff and we can say, look at the change that we saw in this month that we had this bump out of this intersection or something like that, that could be really powerful to make those things permanent and also move them around temporarily.
And then, Stephen, assuming we get the draft recommendation from the consultant, are you wanting us to debate and have that one meeting to kind of finalize the action plan? Or are you trying to, like, what time frame are you trying to quickly get this through, knowing that you kind of want, like, I guess, what expectation do you have on our body to actually come our next meeting and whatnot? How quickly do you want us to work on this?
I would think that that would be whatever the commission is comfortable with. But I think we all agree probably it's for the best to get it as soon as possible. I think there's a lot of appetite, I know from everyone. There's 2 meetings in a row. So there's a 26 that was recently approved and then
Second.
the second. So there is at least between those 2 meetings, a little bit of time. If, there's revisions or something in the first meeting, I can see it coming back again the next week.
I just want to have the idea so, we can kind of know in our heads, like come prepared on the 26th to really have a good discussion on what the consultant gives us and then kind of what we have in our agenda packet on kind of piecemealing a plan.
Yeah, I'll send that out as soon as I get it, basically, so that everybody can chew on it if that works for the commission.
And then whatever we approve, it will go to city council.
Yes. Yeah, so that's a change from the previous time where it was just approved in the commission. This time it'll go before council, is our plan.
So we'll ask for your feedback too, Stephen. So as a non-voting member, we'll still ask for your feedback so you can kind of, at least talk to your colleagues on why this plan was created the way it was, and they might offer different, examples or whatnot. Any other discussion?
I'm gonna try to find, one of these cities that I got in touch with and see who's sharing funding with local groups and try to talk to them about what kind of hurdles we experience so that we can educate about those discussions. I think that's a valuable resource in times of a tight budget, is being able to use neighborhood association dollars or school group dollars, things like that.
And then on that point, I know I was gonna save this for my board member comments, but I do think whoever is the new chair, and I want Stephen to be at our meeting for a future discussion. It would be great, Stephen, to have like an actual discussion from the city manager or from Ron about what new revenue we got from the bipartisan road funding plan. Like what is the city's increase that is from the gas tax increase, the marijuana tax increase, and what East Lansing gets from that and how that will impact the actual construction budget of what the city can do. Hopefully, I don't know when those kind of come about, but it would be great to kind of have that just so we know what that looks like.
Yeah, I know Scott House did a presentation on budget that a couple years ago. I think that was something similar that you're thinking, kind of explain.
Like explaining it, but also to going
the
over
changes.
the
Okay.
changes,
Yep.
because obviously it was big what the legislature and the governor did with the 1.8, 1.9 yearly, billion yearly increase directed to county and local roads. So, I was just curious to see how that will be utilized for East Lansing. Because that goes back to Vander Gallon, the funding. So, and seeing if that money can that be used for traffic calming? I don't know how that works with the funding from or is it only for resurfacing and mill projects, or can you actually use how flexible others are the state dollars when it comes to other traffic kind of work? Well, any other questions on our action plan? Okay, committee reports.
One real quick.
Yeah.
Stephen, in the document, it says traffic calming action plan. A couple times you mentioned traffic control action plan.
Oh.
Is there a consensus on wording on that? Is it calming? Is it control?
It should be probably calming.
Okay.
But that could be something that was just my own recommendations, whatever the commission wants to name it.
Okay.
Committee reports. I don't think we talked about the traffic calming plan. I don't believe there's any other open-ended report at this time. Announcements and board member comments. I'll start and we'll just kind of go counterclockwise. So I'm still your chair for another meeting. So that's exciting. Yeah, it's so exciting. Yeah. I want to thank Stephen for being appointed on as our new liaison to this body. It's been great for you to come just to kind of watch and observe how our body works. And, I do hope that, if you're able and you're willing to come to our Monday meetings, because I do think it helps us kind of ask you questions, you ask questions of us. Because the one thing that I try to tell the public and then new commissioners is that we're purely advisory, but the power of our body comes with our relationship with council. And obviously you being a liaison, I would imagine every liaison operates differently, but you are kind of like the spokesperson from our body to the other 4 council members that are elected as you are. So, anytime you have questions, feel free to, I'll give you my email and whatnot. But just thank you for, your service to our city, but also our commission, knowing that traffic and, just a lot of things we're kind of facing a lot of different obstacles with just what residents want. So thank you for either accepting or wanting to be our liaison onto this body. Okay, well, thank you. So that's that. And then the only thing is that Stephen kind of alluded to it. We are down a member. Danny didn't want to be reappointed, so we have 8 members out of a 9-person body. So assuming you said there's 3 applicants who are looking to apply. So those will be scheduled, and Nathan or I will kind of be on those Zoom meetings to kind of interview them. Everybody on this body, I think, was interviewed either by myself or Danny on kind of just the questions we ask and whatnot. And then those recommendations will go to city council for approval. And then I would just ask Stephen that Stephen is CC'd on that scheduling, because usually it's also proper process to have our council liaison be on those interviews. Yeah, so just whenever you're scheduling out, just make sure you add Stephen to it. And then I think, I hope everybody had a good New Year, good Christmas. So yeah, so I'll take it to, Vice Chair Warner.
So this first would be a comment for Stephen. Please, if you have a moment, share kind of for East Lansing Police. I've noticed in the last, many weeks, enforcement is up quite a bit. I don't know if that bears out in the numbers, just having been in the community around through December, I've seen more cars out, seeing people on Grand River get pulled over. And I know that's something that we've heard from the community, and some of us have noticed over the past many years that's not been the case. So I don't know if it actually is truly bears out in the numbers that we're seeing enforcement for traffic up, but that was my impression of seeing it over the December period. It was noticeably visible.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see those numbers, but I don't have those numbers in front of me, but yeah.
And then the second thing was I had an opportunity to visit a friend who lives on Trowbridge, and they live in that little neighborhood that's down at the end with the one little street that you can't get out of. And this was the first time I visited after they've sort of completed or largely gotten most of that wrapped up. So it's interesting to see the switchback that we talked about a couple of years ago that we were really worried about being very problematic. It's awkward, definitely. But I found as a driver, it was easy for me to understand where I was going and what I was doing. And you do kind of go way down onto almost the highway, and you
turn around and you wait over on the side in a side area and then you merge in. Honestly, it was, not dramatic at all. So I was a skeptic of that in the beginning. I still think there's an interesting cross of people coming off of 496 onto 127 could be moving rather quickly. But as a person who needed to make the 180-degree turn, I felt pretty protected doing that. I had tons of space to do it. I definitely understand if the residents in that little side street feel a little inconvenienced by having to do that every time, but it honestly turned out, I think, better than I thought it was going to at the time. And I'm kind of excited to see all of that starting to wrap up and traffic beginning to flow in through that part of our community. And I'm hopeful that that will also play out in some of these other areas where we're seeing a lot of traffic problems, that maybe those will be diminished because we're not going to have so much that can't go through the Trowbridge corridor and now it can. So, okay.
Just wondering if you could remind me about the meeting with the Southeast Marble neighborhood.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. I'm glad you asked about it because I wanted to mention it. Next Tuesday, the 13th, is gonna be a neighborhood with the Southeast Marble. So they got letters. It's at 6 o'clock here at the Hannah Center. I think it's gonna be in this room, but I'm not sure. But it's gonna be here. And that is to go over the neighborhood resurfacing project, and then what kinds of calming effort we want to include in that project. We will be talking about stop signs probably in that meeting as well. So we'll just kind of mention again, we'll have a little brief history of where the traffic safety in that neighborhood. We'll hopefully kind of own some of, what we could have improved on, and then going forward, just what we know about stop signs. And then also, as far as a neighborhood, if we're going to do, a solution in the interest of not pushing traffic problems to other streets, what we're going to present to them is, these are the intersections that kind of stagger if you're going to do traffic calming in a way that doesn't just push it throughout the neighborhood. So it'd be like a whole or nothing kind of deal where you're implementing traffic calming, or the stop signs will be part of that too. If they are gonna push for stop signs, because that looks like it's gonna go before council, and there's a high likelihood that there's gonna be a lot of support for those stop signs, and there'll be a discussion there of, if we are gonna go forward, if these would be the locations to kind of stagger it, at least that you're not pushing traffic to other locations. But in that obviously will be all the discussion of why not stop signs, or like what's the concern there. So we hope to be really transparent in that meeting. We hope to get a lot of feedback, and hope to inform of that project that's coming up. So that's going to be most likely a two-phased resurfacing project. It'll start on the south half, I think, of the neighborhood so far is where we landed on that, and then next year it'll be north of Melrose. Melrose will be skipped over because that's a separate water main project that we have lined in the CIP at some point in the future. So does that answer?
Yeah, thank you.
And then I'll add something to that. Is there any, I forgot to ask you, Stephen, is there any update to not the study, but we did the whole stormwater master? They got feedback from like myself and, your colleagues and other kind of bodies and commissioners. Like, do we know when that kind of plan is going to be kind of moving forward to city council on stormwater management?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the high water infrastructure grant.
Yes.
So this is a multi-year grant from the city for stormwaters. It kind of came as a result of obviously a lot of the flooding and stuff that was happening. That's scheduled to end that grant by this year. So I think it's even mid this year. So at some point this year, there should be a plan, the high water infrastructure grant, or high water infrastructure plan that goes before city council. Not include all of the analysis that was done, all of the surveys, the model of the city network, where and then from that, recommendations of projects, and then kind of some of the sticky points of funding for some of that. So that should hopefully all come out of that plan later on this year.
Yeah, and the one, yeah,
The grants, what spent by this year, just more. Grants you paid for the stuff.
The
Not
gr-
rural, but have grants.
I think you could ask for an extension. There's ways to get around. It doesn't necessarily have to be a drop deadline, but I think we are having to submit all of our paperwork, as I understand it, for that grant this year.
They know the situation that White Hills will not.
Funding is a very large part of that. Very large part of that discussion.
2 different days, die high. At intersections in White Hills, trying to not drive into the water. That's a big concern that right now. And also, yeah, North Line,
Yes.
other issues.
yeah. No, thank you, Stephen.
Yep.
Sorry. Okay, anything else, Martin? Okay, Vandergaan.
In honor of Adon, I'm wondering if we've heard anything from the police department about our traffic report we requested.
Could you remind me what that traffic report would be?
Crash.
Oh, the crash data, yes. Was that going to be a monthly or a quarterly?
Quarterly.
We just wanted to see.
Yeah. I can bring that at the next meeting. My understanding was that was going to be quarterly, but yeah, I can bring that at the next meeting.
Might be my last, not obviously not last meeting. Observations. Over the chair, vice chair.
Yeah.
We'll see that. Probably about August.
Yeah, and now that we have guidelines or administrative rules, when that time does come, Willem, just send a written email to Stephen, the chair, the vice chair, and our council liaison, just so, hey, if there's like a written documentation that you resigned from your post. So,
I had a quick question. That reminded me, there was, so the city clerk is, I think, going around into different commissions and talking about Robert's Rules or the Open Meetings Act. Would that be something that this commission would be interested in?
Yes, please.
Okay.
training's good. Steven.
So I have unofficial word about the fatal crash at Saginaw Coolidge. The person that was a pedestrian was not at the crosswalk at the time of the crash, which is tragic. I think as much, it's always a piece for education, right? Formal education. I worked several bad crashes in a former position I used to have. And right in front of Peterborough also. I think some of the things that have happened on Harrison Road in front of the school, I think to be looked at around Wilson. I think what everyone said for a long time, can't change Harrison and crosswalk, and it's amazing the painting and the stripes and all that stuff. So I think that's always going to be a concern to make sure that we really make sure those crosswalks are glaring, but having people cross at that spot. Again, we're going to be talking tomorrow night about the trucks on Harrison Road. And then lastly, I'm not sure at what point there's discussion about other concerning intersections. So that I'm not speaking as I guess I would be speaking as a resident for this next comment. Alton and Saginaw.
Yes.
When you think about 10 turn there, it's one thing that there's crashes all over town. The number of injury crashes at that intersection is dramatic. And I'm sure there's going to be people at the school in the park saying, no, I've got to get home that way. but you could go south to Bircham and out through Heights. I'm not sure if there's ever been a consideration of making that a right turn only. But I've just seen too many close crashes, and I've actually had to take very, very injured people out of cars through that thing. It's just a dramatic thing. I understand there's a lot of left-hand turns all the way up and down Saginaw, but that's the most common. That's all I've got to say.
And you reminded me too, on hitching posts, there is now a sign that you can't turn left onto Saginaw.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I don't know.
That's
who
new.
I don't know who put that on, Stephen, but I live in White Hills and it's a temporary sign and it has a red flag and it says no left turn. You gotta turn right. And on Hitching Post Road and I'll look it up right now. I'll send you a picture, Stephen, after this. Because that's where I live and I want to make sure, let me go to my maps.
There's actually a real sign in that.
Yeah, no, because because it is.
Because I'll say a word about it.
Yeah, it's Hitching Post Road now it's not on the St. Thomas side, it's on the opposite side of the other side.
In White Hills.
It's in White Hills that you can't turn left on Saginaw. So I will send you a picture of it when I go to my house. I'll take a picture of it and they have someone put a no and it's legit. Yeah.
Because then you're
Oh, yeah.
all the high school kids coming out of Old Hickory.
Yeah.
Making a left-hand turn there. So at some point there could be no left turns in the whole city. But
Yep.
I think
Just right turns only.
So I'm assuming, Stephen, that was not put by the city, that sign, or do you think it was put in?
It could have been put in by operations maybe or on
Oh,
separately. I'm not aware of it.
Oh. Well.
Or in that, could be in that.
Oh. But yeah, there is now a no left turn sign on Hitching Post.
And if we just encourage everyone to be reasonable.
Yeah.
But
The turn. Yeah.
Yeah. We know. Any other comments?
Sure.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Vandergallion, seconded by Vice Chair Warner. All those in favor?
I
All those against? We are adjourned.